Gambia, Angola, China Holding, Gash, producers of the finest tomato paste in the Gambia. Jaja tomato paste, available in 5 kilos, 1 kilo and in sachets. For wholesale and retail, visit our factory at Banjulunding. We are also producers of Jaja mineral water, cool, clear and fresh. Gash, Gambia, Angola, China Holding, with headquarters at Fatu Golden Plaza, Mile 7, Bertel Harding Highway. Gash Group also provides the best security company, Gash Security, for your offices, warehouses, homes and personal property. Gash Group for all your construction projects, offering you quality water reticulation for your gardens, pump irrigation, tidal irrigation projects and all types of buildings. You can contact Gash on 396-7894, 700-8993, 373-0259. Visit us at Gash Global Group on Battle Harden Highway, Fatu Golden Plaza. Our website www.gashglobal.com. Gambia, Angola, China Holding, Gash.
From Star TV, this is the news with me, Maimunaju Fadera. In the headlines tonight, UN needs to invest more in a rule-based international system that is more responsive to global matters, says President Barrow. EU delegation, US Embassy, British High Commission and German Embassy call on members of the National Assembly to vote in favor of the draft constitution. There is no political tension in the country, only misinformation and misinterpretation, says Vice President, Secretary General and top government Democrats take stock of government activities. Gambians set to protest against high rate of maternity death. On the international scene, soaring food price hit Sudanese as floods ravage the country. Anti-government protests in Egypt's Giza amid tight security presence. Trump to name Supreme Court picked at end of the week. Well, those were the headlines. So now the news in details. As the UN celebrates its 75th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations, the President of the Republic of the Gambia, Adama Barrow, in his statement said, as the highest global multilateral organization, the UN needs to invest more in a rule-based international system that is more responsive to global matters. Binta Koli reports.
President Barrow said, looking back, the United Nations promoted and supported the decolonization agenda, resulting to its growth from 51 founding member states to 193 today. This is a remarkable milestone achievement, which speaks to the consolidation of global governance. The Gambia took the decision to join the UN in 1965 in support of the collective search for solutions to global challenges through diplomacy, international legitimacy, and respect for international law.
As we celebrate today, we ought to reflect deeper in order to evaluate the organization's successes, setbacks, shortcomings, and most importantly, how to reconstruct it functionally to evolve into the world body we want for the future. Mr. President, no single country, big or small, can unilaterally tackle the countless challenges confronting the world today. In spite of the bottlenecks, the last 75 years were marked by dramatic advances in science and technology, particularly in information technology, which continues to generate further advances in many other disciplines. This is an outcome of globalization and international cooperation.
He added that today the world has become a global village, and it is reasonable to conclude that multilateralism and international diplomacy contributed to this development. As our interdependence continue to grow, multilateralism will continue to be strengthened. This is more so as nations continue to develop and new global powers emerge. Therefore, he said, efforts should be doubled to solve all threats to global peace, security, and development. We must not allow the gains made in the promotion and protection of human rights to slip away.
Conflict resolution and management should continue to be a priority at the UN. Terrorism, state insecurity, climate change, nuclear non-proliferation, socio-economic inequalities, and disease will continue to confront the international community. It is only through collective action, global solidarity, and international cooperation that we can tackle them.
Another major threat to international peace is the erratic outbreak of wars that destabilize countries and regions. We must address this phenomenon urgently, strive to resolve the ongoing conflicts around the world and prevent their recurrence, he said. For Star TV News, I am Binta Kweli.
The EU delegation, United States Embassy, British High Commission and German Embassy have issued a joint call for members of the National Assembly to vote in favor of the draft constitution, while Awasani has the rest of the details.
Members of the National Assembly are currently debating the Constitution Promulgation Bill 2020 as partisan politics threaten its survival at this crucial stage. Europe's top diplomatic guns in the country and the United States Embassy have now joined the fray in calling on the MPs to vote in favor of the bill. According to their joint statement, the EU delegation, the United States Embassy, the British High Commission, and the German Embassy urge members of the National Assembly to vote the draft bill on the revised constitution to progress the final stage of parliamentary scrutiny. The draft constitution is the result of extensive consultations with Gambians across the country and in the diaspora, with significant investment of resources, intellectual discussions, and debates by Gambians from all walks of life. In order to consolidate the hard-won democratic gains in recent years, it is vital to the credibility of the current transition to truly democratic, accountable government that the people of the Gambia themselves are given the opportunity to vote in a referendum on the new constitution. Denying them that opportunity is to deny one of the most demanded objectives from the 2016 elections and risk signaling abandonment by this transition government of one of its most significant commitments to the Gambian electorates. For Star TV News, I am Awasane.
The Vice President of the Republic of the Gambia, Dr. Aissata Toure, in her statement during the commemoration at the International Peace Day, has called on Gambians to take capacity building as a very important step in shaping peace in the country. The Vice President said that there is no political tension in the Gambia, but only misinformation and misinterpretation. Well, Dado Cham was part of the participants, and this is her report.
The Office of the President, Directorate and Strategic Policy and Delivery, and the National Youth Council, in partnership with the UN system and other key stakeholders, jointly commemorated via Zoom the International Day for Peace in the Gambia under the theme, Shaping Peace Together. Dr. Toure, as the special guest speaker during the event, said, in order to shape peace in the Gambia, Gambians should take capacity building seriously, in line with advocating for peace and stability. Dr. Toure added that the youths have a big role in this country. If there is anything or support that the youths of this country need in playing their roles in the development of this country, she assured that the government will create the enabling environment for them. All what Gambians have to do is to put hands together, she said.
Capacity building is key in everything we do on earth. If you do not have the capacity, you will be misled. If you don't have the capacity to reflect, you don't have the capacity to ensure that what you are doing is within the right frame or to understand a phenomenon, it becomes problematic. And therefore, capacity building is very key, especially for the young people who need that to build up their analysis, who need that to engage constructively, and who need to take up independent stance when it comes to matters of certain issues that require our engagement in matters like peace and development issues that you have beautifully couched. Advocacy is key because it's only when you advocate and you bring people to be aware, building on your research evidence, strengthening your capacity, you'll be able to advocate the type of change the type of movement or the type of issues that you address, and not to be taken abroad, not to take everybody on board, whether it is right or wrong. And I think these are three key issues that I think I have been working on, and I have heard, and is now being echoed, and I believe you are on the right track. You need the government support, and you are sure of that, I can assure you. Government support is being given because His Excellency President Barrow has actually created the peaceful environment for this change that has occurred after all of us have actually actively involved in trying to shape our destiny and to bring back peace in our country, to ensure that peace remains and we thrive in peace. That enabling environment is there because we are not a homogeneous body, but we are all human beings who coexist, and we have to coexist in a peaceful environment. And that environment is being nurtured, is being created, is being grown after a long spell of pandemonium and panic. I guess.
The Vice President argued that the situation in the country presently is not due to political crisis or tension, but the existence of political misinformation and misinterpretation. Therefore, Gambians should put the interests of its citizens first before anything. The UN resident coordinator in the Gambia, Serafin Wakana, also congratulated stakeholders for making efforts in maintaining peace in the country. She added that working together is a key factor towards shaping peace across the world. The Zoom conversation brought together various stakeholders, including cabinet ministers, National Assembly members, policy makers from government, ministries, agencies, the UN system, other development partners, youth, women, children representatives, religion leaders, civil society organizations, and political parties through the Inter-Party Committee to spread compassion, kindness, and hope on the face of the COVID-19 and stand together with the UN against attempts to use the virus to promote discrimination or haters. Reporting for Star TV News, I am Dado Cham.
The Secretary General and Head of Civil Service, Nuha Toure, has called on his colleagues in the civil service to be result-oriented and proactive to strengthen good governance. He made the remarks at the beginning of a two-day virtual retreat of government technocrats, moderated by the Secretary to Cabinet, Ibrahim Assisi. Dado Cham tells us.
Secretary General Toure emphasized the importance of the mid-term evaluation exercise on the National Development Plan 2018-2021 by the Minister of Finance, which resulted in the formulation of a new long-term vision of a government. He said that the mid-term evaluation will establish the degree of fulfillment of strategic priorities and critical enablers of the NDP in the consideration of their relevance, efficiency, effectiveness, impact, and sustainability. Mr. Toure told the retreat that they will also assess the initial impact of the COVID-19 on the implementation and attainment of the NDP objectives, identifying opportunities to quickly respond to challenges. It is the outcomes of these assessments that will inform the reprioritized National Development Plan, he added. The session also serves as a validation meeting for the just concluded pay and grading review exercise, which forms an important part of the Civil Service Reform Program 2018-2027. As part of this program, the Personnel Management Office undertook a job evaluation exercise with the aim of reviewing the current pay and grading structure of the civil service. The Permanent Secretary at the Personnel Management Office, Lamin Jawara, in his remark reminded his colleagues that this session will avail them the opportunity to conduct an assessment of the challenges confronting them in the various sectors of the government, stating that as a team of technocrats, they will also be engaged in an information and experience sharing exercise, interrogate the status quo of the NDP, and come up with sound solutions to obstacles impeding the deliverable of the goals for the good of the country, he said. As a quarterly event, the first virtual session will avail opportunity to the permanent secretaries and planners to collectively take stock of the government's activities, vice versa the successes and challenges, with the view of devising strategy to accelerate attainment of the 2021 NDP goals. It also looks at challenges affecting the effective implementation of the institutional arrangements, especially the sector working groups. During the opening ceremony, Secretary General Toure welcomed the new Director General of the Department of Strategy, Policy and Delivery, Professor Jainaba M.L. Ka, to the meeting. Professor Ka will lead her team on leadership, strategic management, innovations, talent management and functionality at the department with the Office of the Secretary General, the Cabinet Office and other MDAs and stakeholders in government. She brings with her a wealth of work experience on strategy, management and policy from both international and national institutions and organizations. Reporting for Star TV News, I am Dado Cham.
A protest is scheduled to take place tomorrow as many Gambians are ready to go out on the streets to protest against the recent rate of maternity deaths in the country. Binta Koli tells us more.
People from all walks of life have voiced their opinions on social media on the recent rate of maternity death in the country. Many Gambians blame the health system of the country for failing women whenever they undergo labor, or based on their negligence to the women after giving birth. Some also blame the cultural practice of female genital mutilation (FGM), saying that it is the actual cause of the complication women undergo during childbirth. The death rate triggered Gambians, and not only women but also men, to campaign on social media against the wrong behavior of some healthcare personnel. We have seen many hashtags recently standing in solidarity with women. We have seen the intervention of a Gambian by the name Mati Bojang, based in US studying biochemistry, who upon completing her degree plans to attend medical school to help improve access to life-saving healthcare for Gambians in poor societies. She has been cited in the forefront with hashtag Gambian Women's Life Matter. Her sole aim is to do a peaceful protest that will make government hear their voices loud and clearly to enable them put a stop to this unacceptable act. Even though many believe that deaths are due to the behavior of midwives and nurses, some said it is caused by genital mutilation, where the genital of a female is either cut, injured or even changed. The controversy started in 2019 but became heated when a lady by the name Fatou Diba gave birth to her first child through natural birth. But a C-section was carried on her because she was having twins at the ABS clinic and was later referred to the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital due to her complications, according to reports. She was left unattended in an ambulance at the gate of the emergency ward for more than 30 minutes due to the fear that she might have COVID-19. However, it was later realized that she didn't have it when she has already died. It is confirmed that between 2019 and 2020, almost 15 women lost their life through childbirth. The protest will take place tomorrow, Wednesday. For Star TV News, I am Binta Koli.
Well, those were the local stories. We'll be back with the international news after the short commercial break. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Gambia, Angola, China Holding, Gosh, producers of the finest tomato paste in the Gambia. Jeja tomato paste, available in 5 kilos, 1 kilo and in sachets. For wholesale and retail, visit our factory at Banjulonding. We are also producers of Jeja mineral water, cool, clear and fresh. Gosh, Gambia, Angola, China Holding, with headquarters at Fatu Golden Plaza, Mile 7, Bertel Harding Highway. Gosh Group also provides the best security company, Gash Security, for your offices, warehouses, homes and personal property. Gash Group for all your construction projects, offering you quality water reticulation for your gardens, pump irrigation, tidal irrigation projects and all types of buildings. You can contact Gash on 396-7894, 700-8993, 373-0259. Visit us at Gash Global Group on Battle Harden Highway, Fatu Golden Plaza. Our website www.gashglobal.com. Gambia, Angola, China Holding, Gash.
Welcome back after that short commercial break, and we now look at the news beyond our borders. Sudanese people who have been struggling with a steep rise in the price of food. The inflation has also affected the provision of aid to tens of thousands of people displaced. Flooding is adding to the misery of the Sudanese people who have been struggling with a steep rise in the price of food. The inflation has also affected the provision of aid to tens of thousands of people displaced by the floods in 17 of the country's 18 states. Price of essential commodities like bread and sugar are rising to more than double, and long queues for bread are now almost everywhere. Well, Al Jazeera's Mohamed Adaw reports from Khartoum, Sudan.
Nafisa Hamid and her family had hoped things would get better for them after the removal of Sudan's longtime leader, Omar al-Bashir. But a year and a half later, prices of basic goods are still soaring, and Nafisa, who is disabled and makes falafel or bean cake to support her family, is finding it harder to make ends meet.
Of course, this life is very hard. Prices are increasing by the day, and some days we eat, some days we don't.
A week ago, the Sudanese government declared a state of economic emergency. The move followed a sharp decline by the Sudanese pound against the dollar. Since then, inflation has risen to a record 167%, with prices of essential commodities like bread and sugar rising to more than double. Long queues for bread are now visible almost everywhere.
We are forced to wait in queues for more than 3 hours at a time to buy bread. Just 10 pieces of bread. The elderly who can't stand for long are really suffering. We are all suffering.
The inflation has also affected the provision of aid to tens of thousands of people displaced by the weeks-long flooding in 17 of Sudan's 18 states. Aid agencies say they're forced to deal with a huge shortfall in funding.
Actually, it has been quite catastrophic, if I may. When we receive, let's say, $1, only 25 cents of that maximum is what we're able to use. Because of the inflation, last July, inflation was at 144%. In August, was almost 167%. So that means our ability to buy things is only 25%.
Sudan's transitional government blames the decline of the currency on what it calls a systematic operation to vandalize the economy by those opposing it.
We will crack down heavily on those trying to manipulate the markets. We will be united in doing this as a government. We will also introduce regulations for import and export of gold.
Yet some people are blaming the government itself for the crisis. In April, it raised the minimum wage from $5 to $60. That is the largest pay rise in the country's history. But broke and with no resources of its own, the government opted to fund the increment by printing more money, setting Sudan on a path to further economic decline. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo recently raised hopes of better economic prospects here when he announced the possible removal of Sudan from its role of state sponsors of terrorism, perhaps even before the U.S. elections in November. That would allow Sudan to shed its pariah status, attract foreign investors, and once again access credit from institutions like the IMF and World Bank. But diplomats say that's hinged on Sudan first normalizing relations with Israel, a bitter pill it may be forced to swallow to ease its own domestic problems. Mohamed Adu, Al Jazeera, Khartoum, Sudan.
Anti-government protests in Egypt's Giza amid tight security presence. There have been protests in several Egyptian cities calling on President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to step down. Security forces have arrested more than 1,000 people leading up to the demonstrations in an effort to stop them from taking place. Al Jazeera's Andrew Chappell reports.
Defying government orders to stay home, thousands of Egyptians marched on Sunday to express their anger about deteriorating conditions and called on the president to resign. South of the capital Cairo and Giza, demonstrators were heard chanting against the military. Police later fired tear gas to disperse the crowd of stone throwers. Security was people, according to Amnesty International. This time, the raids came first.
There were over 1,000 preemptive detentions at metro stations and bus stations in areas like this, and there's been a crackdown, arrests of intellectuals, university students, common citizens, all to preempt larger protests. I think what's important here is not the breadth or size of the protests, though, but the fact that they're happening at all in such a tightly controlled situation and really provoked by nothing, because this is just the anniversary of the protests last year.
Some answered Ali's call to march, but not the millions he'd hoped for. Still, it's proven that many Egyptians will find a way to vent their frustrations and call for change, no matter the cost. Andrew Chappell, Al Jazeera.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he expects to announce his pick for the Supreme Court by Saturday. That will be before the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg is buried. Trump's Republican Party wants to confirm his nominee in the Senate as soon as possible, but Democratic opponents say it is too close to the election. Al Jazeera's Alan Fisher reports from the U.S. capital, Washington, D.C.
Leaving for a campaign event in Ohio, President Donald Trump revealed he had a short list for the Supreme Court vacancy and he wants a vote before the election.
5 women are being looked at and vetted very carefully. 5. And we'll make a decision probably Saturday, but Friday or Saturday.
It's been confirmed the body of Ruth Bader Ginsburg will lie in state on Capitol Hill on Friday, the first woman to be given that honour. But Capitol Hill is also the place where the arguments about her replacement continue. The leader of the Republicans in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, says there will be a vote. What is telling, he said by the end of the year, not November the 3rd, the date of the presidential election.
Behind the fact that this Senate will vote on this nomination this year. The American people re-elected our majority in 2016. They strengthened it further in 2018 because we pledged to work with President Trump on the most critical issues facing our country. The federal judiciary was right at the top of the list.
Today I am nominating Chief Judge Merrick Brian Garland to join the Supreme Court.
Back in 2016, 10 months before the election, President Barack Obama named Merrick Garland to fill a vacancy on the Supreme Court. It was caused by the death of a conservative justice. The Republicans refused to push for a vote on his nomination, insisting the election should be held first. It was something Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer insists the Republicans should remember.
The Senate has never confirmed a nominee to the Supreme Court this close to a presidential election. If that was how Leader McConnell and Senate Republicans justified their mindless obstruction of President Obama's nominee, surely they must abide by their own standard.
While Donald Trump wants the vote by November the 3rd, Mitch McConnell understands the politics at play here. He knows that Donald Trump won in 2016 largely because of his promise to reshape the Supreme Court, to put more conservatives on the bench. And that same issue might just drive more supporters to his side come November the 3rd. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden has also been on the campaign trail, but in his speech the Supreme Court vacancy never got a mention. He's concentrating on COVID, unemployment and healthcare, issues he believes makes Donald Trump more vulnerable in November's election. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera, at the White House.
Well, before we end the news, a quick recap of our main headlines. UN needs to invest more in a rule-based international system that is more responsive to global matters, says President Barrow. EU delegation, US Embassy, British High Commission and German Embassy call on members of the National Assembly to vote in favor of the draft constitution. There is no political tension in the country, only misinformation and misinterpretation, says Vice President. Secretary General and top government Democrats take stock of government activities. Gambians set to protest against high rate of maternity death. On the international scene, soaring food price hit Sudanese as floods ravage the country. Anti-government protests in Egypt's Giza amid tight security presence. Trump to name Supreme Court picked at end of the week. Well, that's all for this edition of the news. Do enjoy the rest of our programs and join us tomorrow for more news. Thanks for watching and stay with us.